It's 5:30. I'll call the special meeting to order. The meeting tonight is to review the FY 2019 proposed operating budget and the FY 2019 to FY 2024 capital programs. We left off the last meeting after the presentation, absorbing everything that we saw. Since then, I guess we've gone back and looked. We've got revised submittal budget with additional information. So I think instead of going through a definite presentation, we'll just open now for questions from the commission. So, commissioners, where do we jump in, right?
Yeah, where do we jump in?
There's one that I would like to bring up. That's this room we're sitting in. We had talked about this before, spending $50,000 to update the systems in this room, and I don't understand why we would spend $50,000 on this one room. I'm apparently missing something because it's back in the budget. So maybe I need further explanation. I am a dinosaur when it comes to new technology.
No, I had that noted too. I have the same question with other needs of putting $50,000 here to get a gain, a return on that. Lois?
Yeah, same here. I'm in line with the two of you.
There are options when you're looking at the technology in here, and it depends on the goal, of course. The reason we put it in there, of course, is to upgrade the technology. And one of the things that have come out of the community planning is, of course, transparency and openness and government, and that certainly lends that to that. I know we record it now, and I'm not saying we need a live stream, but there are saying we could do. Instead of cutting it all out, if you left some there, we could do some improvements here that would help that. But
And I would just, I noticed in the agenda for the Thursday's meeting, we have some bids that we've received for lighting for the auditorium. Some of the things I think we could look and move that into the future, but for our budget, I wouldn't have a problem if striking it, or is that what your recommendation was? Or?
Yes, for the veterans room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I think that lighting, which will come up in the Thursday's meeting, when the bid a little over $101,000, which is probably, taking a guess here, probably $30,000 plus more than we anticipated potentially spending. So yeah, I'm with you too.
Did you have any?
That was the main one. Yeah, go ahead.
Louis, did you have?
Well, I have something here. It's my own personal opinion, and you guys you may agree, you may not agree, you may throw rocks at me, and that's fine. I'm used to having rocks thrown at me. When this CPI, when the legislature passed that, all the taxing entities in the county, they went ahead and increased their their mill levy in anticipation of that being to the fact that they may be limited or not being able to raise their adjust their mill levy if the CIP stayed flat, if there wasn't an increase in it. And I know we're getting ready to the water and sewer rates are going to go up a small amount again. And we all realize that I think we're continually putting a burden on the people, some of the people here that are having a hard time making ends meet. And I know you can only spend what you take in. I would like to see us go ahead and stay with the assessed value is down. We're looking at $48,062 for 1 mill. I'm looking at staying with the mill levy of the previous year, 53.344, and not taking into consideration the 1.4%. It's just it's a small token on city government to look and say we could have taken it, but we're going to work with what we have and with other costs that we put onto the taxpayer over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
We're just going to work within. We're going to work within that, and we're not going to take it. We're not going to increase that. We're going to work with what's been given to us, and we're going to live with it. And that's my take. I don't know how you two gentlemen feel on it, but that's my 2 cents worth.
Well, I was looking at that too. I've heard a lot of people with our water rate increase, and I guess what I was hoping we could remain our expenses the same, but then also had a little, I don't know, more drastic. I just throw out for conversation, but last year water sewer we transferred into general fund for administrative salaries $647,500. We're looking at $781,000 for 2019. And I've mentioned it before. It seems like it's hard to run a business when you transfer the money out, and those two funds have been suffering. But what would happen if instead of raising the rate, we took our projected increase out of the administrative fund so we could leave our rates the same and reduce the administrative salary? Because you look at our salaries in administration and in finance, the offices, that's more than what our salary is budgeted. So to compensate that, it seems extreme. And we've all where we've gotten through the years by taking money out of the water sewer fund, but that and it's going to matter no matter what we do, a reduction of spending elsewhere. But water sewer rates hits everyone the same and not proportional as a mill levy does based upon the value of your property.
I'm not sure what exactly you're proposing then to reduce.
Reduce the administrative salaries coming out of water and sewer and sanitation to compensate for the rate increase.
So keep it roughly the same as this year?
Yeah, not do a rate increase in January, but cover that projected increase by reducing the administrative salaries we're taking out of those funds. How much was the rate increase going to generate? Do you know offhand, Mike?
Let me look here. So on the rates, what I'm looking at for 18, both on the water and the sewer side of things.
For 19, we're going to
Right,
increase
right. So
6.5 and 3%.
So what we budgeted for 18, I pulled those down because our consumption's been down a little bit. So the numbers aren't quite hitting where we'd anticipated. That fluctuates with with the consumption and the number of customers you have. So based on what I'm seeing here on the water side, about $2,500 or $250,000, and on the sewer side, roughly about the same.
So we're looking at a total of 500,000
Yeah.
going to be generated in the
Yeah.
6.5% and the 3%
Yes.
increase.
Yes, that's correct.
Quite a bit of money.
A lot of work to do.
So that means,
Yeah.
just to be clear, then that would reduce the transfer by $500,000. So that's a loss to the general fund of $500,000.
Right.
And I don't know where that's going to come from. I mean, that's the challenge. That would equal. We'd have to.
Can we reduce it to reduce the rate increase? We got a balance. I think you noted that we're running a balance in the funds. Is that projected on mark where we assumed we'd be? Or are we ahead? Or are we behind? Or
From a cash balance standpoint,
right?
yeah, I think we're a little bit ahead. It's hard to measure during the course of the middle of the year because I didn't do it month by month.
Well, ahead in what fund? The utility fund or the general fund?
Utility fund.
Utility. I think you stated that we were running a good
But yeah,
positive balance.
positive
now.
balance, revenue over expenditures. Yeah. So we're showing that being 200 and. let me look. About 200,000 in the revised 2018 and 249 in 2019.
So what would that leave our unrestricted reserve in the utility fund? They haven't total. Total.
No, that's just the cash balance that was generated
I know.
for.
Year to year, but what's the going into?
I'd have to look that up, Craig.
I mean, the cautionary thing, of course, these are utilities,
Right.
and you've got to carry a pretty good unrestricted fund balance. In like the general fund, the kind of rule of thumb is 10-15% or a little higher. We're at 5%. The utility fund, I'm not sure where we are, but you typically carry 25% or more because they are a utility, and we're going through major rehabilitation right now with the water treatment plant. We haven't even done phase 2 yet, or even scoped out phase 2 or designed. So I'm just saying we have to look carefully at those fund balances instead of just wiping them out. And that's why I'm not sure where we are total. I mean, that's why we generate a little every year, and hopefully, we always want to come in any fund, revenues higher than expenditures, so you just have to be careful with the utility. Significant.
Yeah.
And because it's a utility, and water treatment plants, sewer treatment plants, if something should happen again, that's why you have a good 25%. Some say 6 months. Some utilities carry 50% or more.
And I think because we haven't monitored it in the past, that's why we got to where we are, and we've had to take drastic measures. But if there was a way even to keep the transfer the same, if not bring it down a little from where it was last year.
As a percentage, I think we showed that graph, didn't we?
Yeah.
We actually are reducing it as a percentage, and we're trying to get back down. It was up close to 20% at one point. We're down in did we get below 15? We're about 14, 12%.
We were 12, I think 12.5 last year, and I think, or for 18, and we're showing it to be 12.2 and 19.
I don't know, that's just what I was wondering. I don't know
Yeah.
how you guys,
It's a fair
feel-
question, certainly, a good question. All three of us have always agreed it'd be nice if we had some reserves built up, and we
Right.
should be taking steps to build up our reserves. So I felt like that was a step a step in that direction. I hate to say let's not do that just because, we don't have to have it. It's true we don't have to have it probably, but
can we cut the rate increase, the 6.5 on water? We hit people pretty hard this year.
Yeah, and I understand
And,
that.
That's the thing, that it would be easier to go up a little over a longer period of time to give a little relief than to go up quick and still,
I guess we'd have to
double
look at,
whammy.
when we do rate studies like that, you do 5-year projection, you project your capital
Right.
reserves, and that's what we did. And of course, we had to take that big jump, which we've done, and then the next 5 years are, relatively smaller than that, of course. And it was to cover, obviously, the major improvements to the water treatment plant, the debt service that would be added on and so forth. It was programmed to cover that, so I think we need to take a look at, typically, on a 5-year study, and after a couple of years, you take a look at it and see how you're doing. You can certainly, it's up to you. You can cut the rates as you want, but you just want to look at it carefully and see what impact. Say you cut it from 6 to 3 over the next, and it was 3% over the next 4 years or whatever. What would that
Yeah, 'cause
be after 5 years? Would we cover
the
our
5-year
debt?
plan, of course, was 100% on the water, 16.5% on the sewer. Second year, 6.5 water, 3 on the sewer. Everything after that for the remaining 5 years is I do believe 2% each year. It's either 2 or 3% each year. I'd have to pull up the study and see exactly what it was.
I hate to sound callous, but have you gotten a lot of complaints about the water rates? Hundreds or 5?
No, not hundreds.
A lot, enough to be a concern.
Yeah.
I assumed I'd have people beating my door down, and I haven't heard that many actually. But,
I think it's just a combination with everything that we're seeing across the board, a lot of cost increases.
right. Yeah.
And it's just another burden.
Yeah.
And if we could lighten it a little, but still protect
Right.
our reserves, then that's, I know we can't do without it. That's what I wondered if we just held the rate or the transfer the same, just, do a little less impact if, and it's something we won't know tonight, but I definitely don't want to get back to where we are, that we have no reserve
Right.
in the program. But it's kind of a cross that money had been taken out and nothing had been put in, so production costs increase because you're losing more water through the system. So the more water you capture, the less it costs to produce, and the rates can remain stable. But we got to have the people purchasing too, and it's with the utility. The more people you have, the cheaper it gets. But when you go the other way and have service shutoffs or reduce the number of connections, then it's hard to maintain
Right.
surplus or operate.
Sure.
So,
It was indicated that the amount of customers on the water system has dropped. That just the drop has been over the past year, or it's been a slowly decline over the last 2 or 3
It
years.
fluctuates.
It fluctuates.
Yeah, from time to time.
Remember, I mean, even with fluctuation in population and maybe produce a little less water, a little more water, but a utility like that, a water treatment plant, it's a lot of fixed costs. Whether you produce, 10 million gallons a day or you produce 8 million gallons, you still have some fixed costs. The variable costs are chemicals and such. So there's a lot of fixed costs. So population goes down, consumption goes down a little bit, you're still got high fixed costs because you're maintaining that, they call it capacity to provide that water.
Same payroll.
In the information that was given to me, which I'm glad you gave me the information, but we had 4,899 meters actually out in service, but out of those, 668 are inactive. So you're looking at almost 14%, almost 1 out of every 7 water meters is not active. It's an inactive account. So I was just curious, if that's a trend that we're showing, then we're having less customers support the system over time. I like the idea of the automated water meters because you can start tracking not only use, but you can start tracking loss of water revenue. And I've got a magazine that was sent to Fred Meyer that I got. It was in his basket, which is my basket now, and I've read it. But it allows you to track where your loss of water is, because as of now, you really don't have any idea how much water you could be potentially is being lost. Is that not true?
And I think we have a pretty good.
You probably have an
We
idea,
have a pretty good.
but
We have to do it yearly, use reports in the state.
okay.
We have to track our water loss. And right now, we're right in the 18% water loss, which is not bad. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but it's really not. If you get down to 10%, you're doing incredible.
15's pretty
Yeah, that's
normal.
especially from
You-
an
you get up
old
in-
system like this.
Get up over
18% is
30%, then
good.
the state camps out on your doorstep until you start doing some corrective actions.
Terry, I hadn't heard the term inactive meters before, I don't think. How do we define it as inactive? No sales in the last 6 months, or?
I don't know what the definition on that one is.
It would just be that
Probably
just
a
an
snapshot in time, and if there's service
Yeah.
assigned to that meter that's been set, then it would be active. If otherwise, it'd be inactive.
Somebody
It'd just
moved
be
it
turned
around,
off.
Moved it out and shut it off. And nobody's moved in to turn it on.
Yeah.
Wait, so I still don't understand. So we have a meter in place, but we don't have it set up as an account?
Well, it wouldn't be an account, so to speak, because you don't have the account until someone establishes that service. So
Right.
if it's just a vacant house and there's no service to it, and the meter's still setting there, it's just an inactive meter.
Is that the way we usually do it? When a house becomes empty, we just leave the meter there?
Yes. Yeah, we have quite a few. Mostly like the infill lots in town where we're doing the demolition. We'll leave those water meters there in case somebody comes in and wants to build, and that way we don't have to go back in and build a whole new meter set. It's already
Right.
there.
I hear stories, I don't know if there's any truth to them, that we have squatters in vacant houses in town, and it just struck me that we might be providing them with free water.
They wouldn't have it for very long.
Yeah, we catch that. We catch that because it would be inactive, and when they go to read it, there's activity on an account that
Okay,
is not
so
set
even though
up.
the meter's inactive, they still read it each month?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Normally, if there's not a structure there, we take the meter itself out. We leave
Yeah.
the setter in the box
Right.
and leave there. Yeah, we're getting a lot more proactive at blocking stuff off now than what we were in the past to get people's attention, because normally in the past you go shut it off before you could get to them, the block leaving, they were out there turning it back on.
Yeah.
So
But like at my house, we have 2 meters, one for watering the lawn and one for the house. And so if I don't water the lawn for 6 months all winter, is that considered inactive, or it's still active because it's in my name?
That's just it's active.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, it's active. As long as we're billing you, it's active.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
While you're up here, have you identified vendors that would be a supplier for the automated meters, water meters?
Have I?
Identified a vendor or vendors to look at, or do you have someone in
Oh
mind?
yeah, I've been talking to Badger Meter here recently, and they're going to do a propagation study for us, which doesn't cost anything. Look at fixed base network to see how many towers we would need to put in. Pretty much any of them will do that for you for free anyway. Okay. And yes, I've looked at several different companies and talked to about everybody out there.
I got to talk to one of the city people over at Howard, and they went with a census iPearl system, and they had the benefit of replacing all their water lines prior to going to and upgrading all their water meters, and they were real happy with the system that they had, and it had performed, and it happened to be compatible with some of the software that they had when they integrated. And they were real happy with that. And I know as Atmos on their meter changes, they're using that census as a supplier.
Census
for the
is a good brand of meter. They're very, very good brand.
Okay. Thank you, Terry.
Terry, before you get away. So my wife owns a downtown store, a retail store, but I have to pay all the bills even though she owns it. So all summer we don't use any gas. It's only hooked up to the furnace. But my gas bill for no use is 3 times what my water bill is. Of course, they don't use a lot of water. It's just use a restroom. But so it makes me wonder if we're charging enough for the people that are low users. If my water meter is costing me 1/3 as much as my gas meter, which is sitting idle, do you know what the average is off the top of your head? I mean, what are people paying on their water bills? Or
There again, the average is about a $4,000 or 4,000 gallon a month consumption.
is that residential or throughout the whole system?
That's throughout the whole system. It's just pulling everybody in.
Okay, so that's
Or average, yes.
so
But average bill, you mean as far as surrounding communities?
no, just what is our average bill? Or average residential, maybe? Because I know we have some big
I
users.
consider myself pretty average, but total bill, mine runs about $95 a month.
For water?
Water, trash, and sewer
Oh,
altogether.
but what
My
about
total
water?
bill.
I'm just talking about water.
I don't remember. I have to look at that closely.
Okay.
I'm just
Doesn't
worried
even
about
look at his bill.
No. I'm just worried about that total amount every month.
I gotcha. Okay.
Without
Seems like
using
it's-
any water, I think it's around $49. And if you have a unoccupied house, it's about $65 a month for water, sewer.
Water
trash.
and sewer? Oh,
Yeah,
for all 3 again?
Yeah.
Okay.
From what I remember when we went through this, like 4,000 gallon customer here was whatever you say, and Caney was about $10, $15 a month more. Same amount of water.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Coffeyville's pretty close.
it's splitting hairs. I just know when we doubled water rates, my city bill didn't go up that much. Because the water is such a small part of the bill. So
Yeah,
I know.
the calculation that we did for that 4,000 gallon customer, it was going to go up basically 1/3. Your whole bill collectively, even with the 100% increase,
went up 1/3.
it went up 1/3.
Wow.
Yeah. It affected mine by about $20 a month.
Yeah, that's what I would have said about
And that was the average user, but somebody like you're probably just paying a minimum bill. you're under that average, so you're just paying.
My wife takes a lot of long showers and baths.
Well, I thought you were talking about the store.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the house.
Yeah, well, you're probably over that.
It depends on your usage. Yeah. My prior wife, when my kids were young, it wasn't anything for us to use 11, 12,000 gallons a month. So if I was paying those rates now, it would be
Yeah,
$175 a month.
All right, thanks. Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I got us off track there.
Still a
No.
bargain compared to electric.
Yeah.
Okay, back to, do you think it's possible to reduce the percentage and still remain same, or do you want to look at it and let us know?
You mean remain the same?
Reduce the rate and keep the transfer as proposed.
Keep the, yeah, if
Oh,
we
okay.
can
That, all right.
lower our
Yeah.
percentage.
Yeah, we'll look
and
at that.
Still keep
Yeah,
our
we can do a
reserve
quick-
going
Mike,
forward.
Mike can do a quick,
Okay,
see what the impact would be on that.
Lower our percentage increase?
Say from
Right.
6, say like in half, you mean, something like 6 to 3, or?
no,
Or just,
just if,
or totally?
based upon reducing the administrative salary transfer, if we could reduce the percentage a little bit, some, tell us how much you can reduce it and still generate the revenue we need, but not have the drastic increase again, 2 years in a row.
I want to make sure I'm clear. Reducing the transfer is what we're suggesting.
Right.
But how much
From
can we
what's
reduce
proposed.
from what's proposed, and how much can we reduce that to leave what? Leave the utility? I mean, the impact is going to be to the general fund. That's what we'd have to look at. If whatever we reduce it,
Right.
we'd have to cut that amount out of the general fund. So, I'm not sure what you're asking. We can.
I
mean, you-
think he's saying take it back down to what we have programmed for 2018, and whatever that reduction is from what we have
Right.
proposed in 2019. How much could we lower the set increases for the rates?
Okay, back it out of the water rates, not out of the general fund.
Right.
Okay.
Well, the general fund's going to not get the 781,000 transfer. It's going to get 647.50 or 500.
Okay, that's what I want to make clear, that the impact on the general fund. Yeah, we'll
And
look at that.
I had
Can I go back to one thing
Sure.
on his, because we kind of moved real quick. Just for clarification on the mill reduction that you're talking about, we have the 1.4% in there. You said keeping the rate the same, but did you actually mean keeping the levy the same? Because if you
The
keep,
levy.
yeah, the levy, because the levy, you have to move those numbers, the rate up and down to account for the difference in the valuations. So,
Right. I
okay.
understood that, yes,
Okay.
yes. Yes, I understood that.
by keeping the levy the same, you're going to reduce
You're
spending
not going to
too.
take the 1.4%.
well, we've just got to look at it. I just wanted to be
Right.
clear on the fact that it wouldn't be the same rate as what we saw in 2018. The rate would be different because the valuations are different.
Right,
But if that levy were to stay the same,
yes.
so, okay, I just wanted clarity on that. Okay.
So when you keep the mill levy the same, you're going to generate less revenue in ad valorem property tax.
No.
So that's the question
It's
he
vice
was
versa.
asking, is the levy is the total dollar amount you're going to raise. 5 million or whatever it is.
Five or 2.6 million.
Whatever, 2.6 million is the amount of money you'll raise through property taxes. So if you keep that the same and the assessed value goes down, the rate has got to go up
Right,
to generate that. That's what we're trying to get clear.
right.
Because we first talked about keeping the rate at 53.344 the same and that would generate a lot less levy because the valuation went down. Clear as mud.
Right.
It gets confusing
Yeah.
sometimes.
So, yeah, I just
But
I
we want
just
to make
want to
that
be
clear
on
what we're
If we keep the mill levy the same and our valuation dropped by 1.7%, right, then our revenue is going to drop by 1.7%.
No, the levy is the amount of tax
The
dollars.
levy.
The rates would then go up by 1.7%, whatever the case may be.
But if we wanted to keep the mill levy the same, the rate,
Well, there are two different
levy
things.
and rate are two different things.
Right. So
Thank you.
keep the levy because
Keep me in line.
that's the total amount that's collected.
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
So if your valuation goes down and you're keeping the levy the same, then your rate has to go up. If
Right.
the valuation had
Yes.
went up and you kept the levy the same, then
Right.
your rate would come down.
But if we don't want to raise the rate, then given that our valuation has dropped, our
Right.
total mill levy is going to drop by the 1.7%.
No, so that's why you have to raise the rate to maintain the
I
same
understand.
level of
Yes, that's why I said if we wanted to
taxation.
keep the rate the same, though,
Then you're
It would
going
drop.
to generate less tax dollars.
right, by 1.7% in this
Yeah, or
case.
whatever it was.
So basically, on the 1 mil being worth $48,062, if you take the 53.344, which was a mill levy in 2018, then you ended up with $2,563,819. Which would be, and if we went with the 54.844 for 2019, you would end up with $2,635,932, which would be a difference of $72,113.
That's $36,000 increase year over year.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I looked at the wrong number. That would be $2,599,539 versus
Right.
$2,635,932,
Yeah.
which would be $36,000.
Yeah,
$36,394. Sorry, I got off on the wrong.
What we
figure.
did, and part of the reason, Craig and I really talked a lot about this. I mean, we made a lot of cuts before we ever came in here, and we looked at that. And we are limited on what we can increase it year over year by that CPI. The CPI hasn't moved 2 years. We did reduce the levy, so the total taxation for the 2018 budget over the 2017 budget by $61,000. So by increasing it $36,000 this year, it's still an overall decrease from where we were in 2017.
My only concern, I really didn't get many complaints on the increase in water rates, which absolutely blew me away. But I get complaints every week on that our taxes are too damn high, and I always blame it on the county and the college and the school district, But it would be nice if we could keep it the same, keep the rate
Sure.
the same. And if it's, it's only, I hate to say that small amount, but it's only a difference of that many $1,000s. It seems to me like it might be politically, good to keep it the same, to keep the rate the same, even though the valuation has dropped. And it
Good.
does lead to a drop in
We'll see what adjustments we can make.
well, that's just one speaking, but I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it seems to me like if we could keep the rate the same, that would be a bonus.
How about the levy the same?
The levy.
The levy.
No, he's saying the rate.
The rate.
I'm saying the rate.
Saying the rate.
54, keeping it at 53.34.
344.
And that was
That's what I mean to say. I don't know what I said.
The levy.
So, all right. So let me put it to you in a different way.
Okay.
So
maybe this
if-
one will
if-
work.
Yeah. If your levy, if you're keeping your levy the same and your valuation went down, and if I raise your rate up
Yep.
to compensate for that, to
Yep.
get back to the same thing.
Yep.
Your tax bill didn't move.
Assuming my valuation changes.
Assumed
On the
everybody's
average,
assumed
right.
everybody's valuation went down exactly the
Appropriate.
same.
Yeah, but we know that won't happen because mine always goes up. No I'm kidding. But do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I do.
Okay, politically, to say we're not raising the rate, I think is great if we can do it.
And because for half below, half above, they're going to see a tax, their dollar amount paying to the city will go down because their valuation went down. Those other half, though, valuations went up, they'll pay a little more because the valuation went up, but the rate's the same.
Sure. Understood.
So that's the average, but that's the way it works. I just need to file a grievance with the county to see if we can reduce my evaluation.
Don't hold your breath.
Yeah. So, what would you like us, I mean, we know the number. We can certainly come back with, we've talked several things that we might have to make adjustments for, so, if you want to, let's just say property tax, if we need to cut $36,400.
But if I keep the rate the same, it's
Right.
going to be more than that.
Oh, okay, I thought that's the levy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because if I keep the
Right.
rate the same, our levy will be less than what it was. And it will continue.
That's the number I got a question mark here. What's the number we need to get to, and we'll.
So,
Yeah, it's what are you looking to keep the taxes the same? Then you reduce spending, and the mill levy is adjusted by that final number.
if we collected, and I'm just using a nice round number because it was real close, $2.6 million, 2018. If you say, Mike, I don't want to take the 1.4% increase, collect the same amount of taxes as you did in 18. Okay, do that. But with the fact that the valuations went down, the rate itself would go up a little bit to compensate for that. But there would be no adjustment on the actual amount of taxes that were levied against the taxpayers.
It's a strange system to generate revenue because everyone is different, and I hear both too. Taxes going up, property tax going up, and the only way to bring it down is to cut spending. And
Especially in the general fund, typically that pays for, first and foremost, public safety. Police and fire, the property taxes are first and foremost go to. And after that, other services. But
yeah, and one way is, we had
we are.
2 vehicles in the police department, a patrol car and a detective's car. Has put the detective's car out another year, bring it back down to what was budgeted last year for this. There's different ways to do it. That's, if we keep the thing the same, we're just going to have to go back and glean where it can. So I think got an idea of what was meant there.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Well, if we're clear on that, I had a question going through the budget. You had listed Commission Capital Reserve 2018, 250,000 is in that fund.
Yes.
240.
250,000. Okay. Just thinking where we're looking at that for 2019, and we've got the fund broken into 125,000 for a vehicle payment and 75,000 for streets. We're taking 150,000 for streets now, and the idea, I think when we initially talked, was, Gary, to try and build a reserve there. Well, we got the ladder truck dealing with 2. and we're looking at the 500,000 that Mercy gave us, 200,000 for ambulances. So we'll
Yes.
have 300,000 left. Well, if for 2019, if we took the 250 for 2018, take the 240, 250 for 2019.
Now, the money in the 2018, that's moving into the general fund, not out of the general fund.
Okay, is it in a fund that hasn't been
Yeah.
spent?
Right. It's in a fund that hadn't been spent, but we were pulling that back in there. And that was part of our capital programming for 18.
Okay. So is it designated somewhere, or is it in a?
It's designated the general fund CIP for 2018.
So then, what it was saying in the report that it's there is not really complete.
No, it is segregated into a separate fund from
But it
from
is
2017,
designated.
but it is designated for 2018 CIP.
Okay.
That is accurate. Now,
Well, that's not the way I read it.
yeah,
I know
2019, I'm actually showing that I'm taking it out and moving it into that fund.
Okay, well, what I was looking at, if for the ladder truck, we could have 800,000 for a down payment on a truck, and our financing then cuts considerable in the term of the purchase, even taking the 300,000 and the 250 for 2019 could shorten our payment on a truck and then turn our money back into a reserve quicker. I think the 300,000 or the 500,000 was designated for emergency fire EMS, and we could use that extra 300,000 to go help offset the cost. So instead of dragging it out 10 years and then maybe look at increasing the annual payment to cut the interest down.
Sure.
And when I saw the way it read, it looked like that was a fund that was intact, only sitting there for commission capital reserve. And that's why I really thought, now we got 800,000.
No.
So it
based,
really cuts
based on your
down.
Mercy, if you look at the Mercy and what I'll be putting in there for 2019, that 254 went down because of the valuation. 5 mils is worth less now. So it came up to like 240 something. So you would have roughly 540
Yeah.
between what's left in the Mercy and then your 2019 capital reserve.
Well, of course, priorities is the name of the game in budgeting. And when we looked at that 5 mils, whether we put $125,000 as might be a payment, or you could just leave it there, until you could build that 125 every year or more out of that 240. But we did one of our major goals was to increase spending on streets. That's come across very clear. It's usually a priority. It's come across very clear in our strategic planning. And community-based strategic planning of streets. So that's how we tried to increase the streets, because that's what it was for. The 5 mils was for streets as well, as I understand it. And so we put that. That's why we took 75,000. Plus, we increased the amount we're taking from the economic development / transportation fund from 150 to 175. So we would have we're going from 150,000 to 250 or 250,000. Again, that was one of our major goals, was to increase that spending.
Yeah.
But priorities are priorities. If you'd rather put that 75,000, just set it aside for the fire truck, certainly can do that. But I'm just giving you the rationale that why we took 75,000 there, is to get that increase.
I didn't want us to look at just 75,000 in street repairs. That the street repairs is going to be significant in some cases. 300,000, but economic development money too, to turn it all into street repairs. It shortens how much we can reach out to a new business coming in. Is there ways that we can use economic development money for economic development? Because then the more jobs we create, the more water meters we need, the more houses, the more money coming in. Our problem is when we don't get industry, then we go the other way. And it's a catch-22 that...
You're speaking my language now. Be
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's what you get into. And we looked at the fund balance and what's generated in that fund every year. It replenishes, and we felt we could take a little more this year again, because that was like our number one goal is to increase our spending on streets, because as we all agreed this year we had 150,000. Doesn't do much. And we're getting some minor streets done because they don't have any ADA issues and so forth. So we can get up to 250, and then, I'd like to keep going to get it around
Still not enough.
400,000 or 500,000, to spend if you look at the number of miles of streets and the condition of our streets. I don't know if you've seen the map that we have of our streets condition. It says, green is good, red is not so good or bad.
Yeah.
I didn't see a lot of green there.
yeah.
So anyway, that was our goal. That's why we took 75 there versus obviously taking out a property tax or streets or general fund.
This is totally changing the subject, but when I was driving back into town, I got stuck behind a giant tow truck towing one of our sanitation trucks. Was that a setup? Come on, you did that just for my benefit to make me think.
We keep that at the ready at all times.
Yeah, that's what I was guessing. Very shrewd.
The lane miles money we get from KDOT, does that go into general fund and then it just kind of distributed through streets and traffic, or is it used for specific
It just
identified?
goes into the general fund revenue as a revenue line, for and help pick offset streets program, not specifically a capital street but street repair, just the street program that you see in the budget there, streets.
And it went down.
It's just and it went down.
Was about 50,000.
I want to say it's a little bit more than that, but it did go down because this will be the first year that you can build up a balance and you can take it, but starting this year, 2018, you can't do that. If you didn't spend everything you had the previous year that was built up on a project, then you just lost it.
Well, there's two different programs. Lane miles, KDOT pays so much for the per mile of highway going through town to compensate repairs. Then there's the other program that did accumulate, and we had 300,000. It's
Are you talking
different
about
program,
Are you talking about the Fed Fund Exchange?
right?
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So
there's
lane
two.
miles just comes in as highway tax. Is the way that comes in.
It comes in based on our mileage of highway going through town.
I'm not real sure how that's
Yeah.
calculated, but yeah, that comes in like that. And I'd have to look and tell you exactly, but a portion of that one does go into the transportation fund.
But looking at what we've budgeted for the streets, there's not a lot of major projects or repairs,
But we'll have enough this go round to get everything that we have that's sitting out there.
How do you mean that exactly?
Yeah.
That sounded a
In
little more promising than-
projects.
The ones that we've already approved.
And done. Yeah, they have to be completed.
I didn't want you saying on record that we had all the money we needed for everything we wanted.
No. To ensure that we can get all the Fed fund money out. We got sufficient.
So the mile money isn't designated for specific street projects to improve and
No.
maintain the highway.
No.
It's put in the general fund. Then the street traffic
And I
budget's
believe-
based on what we want to do.
Right.
And the money then comes out of general fund to fund that.
Say that one more time.
Okay.
So just so I'm clear.
The lane mile money goes into the general fund.
Okay.
And
And I'm going
then-
to have to check on that. That there are several of those taxes that come in. They're split up in different ways. And I believe on the transportation tax, the highway tax that comes in, a portion goes to the general fund, and the other portion goes to the economic
Okay.
development and
Yeah,
transportation.
if you want to check
fund.
on it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Louis?
I've got a question, and maybe it's in here. I'm sure it's in here. Me finding it might take the rest of the night. The special use sales tax, that 1/4% that's going for streets.
Yes.
Okay, what does that generate yearly? Fluctuates, but
Oh, with the way I have it set, I think it's $482,000.
okay.
And the bulk of that is goes to pay the bond payments.
Okay.
And that 1/4 for street and sidewalk.
Street and sidewalk, right. Okay. So pretty much the majority of that money is bond payment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's kind of what I thought, but I couldn't remember, and I knew you could refresh my memory. Thank you.
You bet.
Gary?
I'm thinking.
Okay.
Thanks.
I think one of the biggest complaints I hear, and we just continue to talk about it, are streets. People would like to see wherever we can find money and move it, if we can generate more funding, build up a reserve in that, because there's so much street work improvement that needs to be taking place. Unless we start building up a reserve and being aggressive toward moving in that direction, we'll never get to that point. We'll always have a map that looks like it's in the middle of a renovation project that just never gets completed. And I think people, no matter who they are, that's one of their big concerns. And that they know we have a lot of needs. They know that. They just ask that we be responsible as we can with money and keeping them in mind. And it's hard to balance. You have needs, and it's hard to balance.
It's
And you
about
just can't keep
priorities.
everybody happy. It's
Yeah, you
it's
try
the
to
reality
balance.
of the situation. But I think in the long run, if they see that what resources we're throwing at certain projects, we follow through and do that, they feel like they see progress, and there is progress being made, and we are moving forward in a direction that they feel like we've been stagnant over a period of time. We're finally getting around to addressing issues, but I've always told them, all these issues didn't happen overnight, and they're not going to be corrected overnight. It's going to be a long, long process. So,
Streets are your largest asset, biggest asset in terms of dollars. as you know, to cost to reconstruct a street, $1 million+ a mile, depending on the work, but around that. I mean, so it's your largest asset. So hopefully, that's why we try to get to a certain level where, it's a long time coming to really say catch up. But if we can get to 250 and then to 300 or 350, just kind of, if we can find the resources, but that's a priority. We felt we needed to put the money there. That's why we structured it that way.
But then, we've got one block that's going to cost $1 million to do.
Right. Yes, yeah.
And if we don't start building the reserve and not do some of the side streets and do that one on Main Street, then we're going to be in worse shape. We're going to have it just back like West Main too. We have to do a balancing act. Just because we get a lot of emphasis on streets, we can't put all our eggs in the street basket, because we've got fire truck needs, we've got police needs,
right.
We've got office needs, we've got
Sanitation
all these
truck.
other needs. Yeah. So it's better to do a little and go forward than to run over here and we'll do streets. Well, now we don't have this area addressed at all, so we're going to stop streets, and now we're going to go address this, because that's where the emphasis is now. It's better to do, like this year. Look how much we did for $150,000, but it's significant. It's going forward. We're doing streets on North Fifth, with the county going to go on out farther north. We're doing Charlotte Street that hasn't been paved since the 60s or 50s. We're going way back there, so we're only doing a block, but we're going forward. But we got to remember, we got $1 million section of street that we're going to have money to do too. And every time we borrow, we just push the burden out for our kids that might not be here to pay for.
Well, I wasn't going to use that word, but that, when you get into projects like that, we would. I mean, think how long it would take us to save $1 million to do that one block, to save it. Just putting, that if you put $100,000, it'd take you 10 years. Sometimes there are good reasons to borrow money, and that's a debate. You can open that debate.
No, I think that's where
when
we missed our priorities with our quarter-cent sales tax on streets. We used it to overlay streets that have a 7-year life, instead of looking at the money being generated in that quarter cent to do a major street like that that's going to last 60, 70 years. And that's where we can't jump real quick. We got to analyze it. Where do we need to go? Because if we're going to go to a bond, let's bond something that's going to last longer than the life of our bond. The street will be gone in 7 years.
Sure. I mean, that's
we
what
got
I mean.
a 15 or 20-year bond to pay off.
Yeah, you wouldn't. Yeah, typically you don't borrow something for longer than the asset.
Right.
The life of the asset. Well, if you're borrowing to do a 7-year street, I don't understand it, but that's neither here nor there. But we do have the debt to pay off, and that's coming out of that SUST funds. But that's what again, when you do a budget like this, we tried to make a balance every week. We have needs in parks as well as in public safety, as well in public works and streets, and so we try to craft that balance, what we can afford where, and everybody gets, I mean, if we just took our top priorities, police chief and fire chief would be rolling in the dough because they'd get everything. That's typically your top priority. So you try to balance, and of course one of the balance that some people think, well, parks, you spend too much money on parks. Well, that's the number one thing that came out in the survey that people love about Independence is our parks, park system. So anyway, we try to play that balance here in the budget, and that's exactly what a budget is you try to balance your needs the best you can, and so that's why we're not putting everything into streets. I mean, if we really wanted to, we could have cut a lot of other capital stuff out and put more into streets, but we tried to
When I was first appointed to city commission, we were talking about lift stations. It seemed like every meeting, because we had lift stations. I hope I don't say this wrong, but they were like dumping raw sewage out onto the ground, I think. Is that accurate? Like out there by the country club?
No, it went into the lake.
It wasn't on the ground.
Yeah. So it felt like we were always fighting fires with our lift stations at the time.
Well, we still got a couple of those, I think, that are the Roger.
Down there, yeah.
Something should happen with this year, we went on that loan.
Yeah.
And then past that, we have one other one that's still old.
It might,
It'll be a major expense. But we're looking at doing some upgrading on that too.
it might be good to have an update on some of that. I remember, kind of forgot the lift stations. We had emphasized that pretty strong, and then I think the design and everything is ready.
Everything's done.
Yeah. We just-
Design's been approved by KDHE. We're just waiting on the loan money to get it out and constructed. Once it's done, we're in pretty good shape on those days.
Yahoo.
We're not dumping anything out on the ground or in the lake, either one.
Yeah.
So kind of recapping what we've talked about, strike the 50,000 in audiovisual. Then the big one will be you're going to kind of look at the rates for water sewer increase. If we kept the transfer the same, and then Lewis's recommendation, and we talked about the rates.
Levy.
Yeah, levy being the same, that we don't raise taxes,
Taxes,
which will,
yes.
to do that, it's going to cost a reduction in spending, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Keeping the levy,
Levy.
define our terms there. Okay.
And the commission capital reserve is designated for streets and equipment for 2019.
Yes.
2018 is committed.
It's the capital reserve is committed for 2018. Yes.
Hey,
Gary?
just point out too, you'll notice we only actually allocated or programmed 200,000, so it actually leaves 40,000 undesignated in that 5 mils,
Yeah.
which can just sit there in that reserve as well. So just
Okay.
remember that.
Part of that was for the police, the highway patrol vehicle
What's that?
on that,
On the 40 mil? Or
On that
the
5 mil.
40,000?
on that 5 mil. Part of that was
No.
already, that was not part of that, was
No.
designated for that,
No.
the purchase of the.
No, that is
highway
general
patrol.
fund.
Oh, okay.
That was out of,
Now, unless the police cars in 2018, yes.
Right, that's what I was talking about.
But in 2019, no.
Okay.
have any questions, ideas? Okay.
I'm an engineer. I'm incapable of coming up with ideas. Sorry.
No.
You want to stand
No.
by, you want to
just
stand
solve
by
problems.
that? Or
No.
off
Everybody knows it's
correction?
I've just heard engineers have ideas that don't work. Right next to the architects.
There you go.
Lewis? I guess that covers our questions.
I got them down.
So,
We'll be publishing, or on this agenda Thursday, if you haven't seen the latest
Yeah.
edition. And we're adding authorization to publish the hearing date,
And set the hearing date.
set the hearing date. This sets the hearing date as August 14th.
okay,
So keep in mind that
But
that's not etched. Publishing it is etched in stone.
yeah,
But those numbers can change.
right.
So it's just proposed.
yeah, it doesn't have the final number in there, as you see on the thing. But so the second question is, when would you like to meet again? We can typically have what we call a budget wrap-up session after the public hearing. You have a wrap-up, and you can do these things, or we can come back in another meeting and show you what that is going to look like. Any time between now and then. I mean, you can make the numbers change right up till adoption, which will be sometime after that public hearing.
Well,
And
no,
you can-
at the public hearing.
You can
which
adopt
is-
it.
You could, yeah, we did it last year. I mean, you adopt it, you can adopt it right there as soon as the budget hearing's done,
Right.
as it's proposed.
Well, what if you go through and do your work, then you send us copies, let us look at it, have a couple days to digest it, and then, what's the date you're setting for the public hearing?
August 14th.
August 14th.
Yeah.
So then we'll have time between
Yeah,
Thursday and the 14th.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. You want to meet before the public hearing again to go over these numbers that we will come back and say this is what the effect will be, and here's what we would recommend if we have to reduce expenditures. Here's what we would recommend cutting or reducing, and so we could meet, anytime between now and.
And it's going to depend, our questions will depend upon we seeing what you're putting together. So August 14th is a Tuesday.
Yes.
So, we could even discuss that at our August 9th meeting.
A regular scheduled meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd
Add that
have
as
to
an
have-
agenda item.
Yeah, instead of having another special meeting.
Right. Because I don't know if our questions will be that long. We're here, we've been here tonight an hour.
Yeah,
I think our questions will be less, so
right.
if we have it enough time in advance to look it over, then we can
Yeah.
make it work.
Just put it as an agenda item for
Right.
the August 9th meeting.
Yeah. So just want you to understand that what you're going to see this coming Thursday, those numbers don't reflect any of these changes we talked
Right.
about.
Right.
So,
Right.
But all we're going to be doing is setting a date for the public hearing, which,
and allowing me to publish.
Publication.
Yeah, which I have to publish that
right,
by August 3rd, I do believe.
The numbers published can be decreased, but they can't be increased.
right. Okay,
Okay.
clear as mud? No
Yeah,
more,
if you have any questions between now and then or whatever, just email, call.
if there's no more questions or discussion, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So maybe.
Okay, which one did that?
Gary. Gary got in before I did. Gary got in before I did.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.